Recent developments in the Horn of Africa have stirred the geopolitical waters, with the growing closeness between Ethiopia and Somalia sending ripples of unease through the so-called Asmara axis, a loose alignment of Eritrea and Egypt that has often positioned itself against Ethiopia's regional ambitions. The visit of Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed to Mogadishu, Somalia's potential offer of Indian Ocean port access to Ethiopia, and Egypt's foreign minister's visit to Asmara this week, alongside Cairo's pointed statements on Red Sea security, reveal a complex web of alliances, rivalries, and strategic maneuvering. Here's a detailed analysis of how these events are reshaping dynamics in the region. The visit of Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed to Mogadishu marked a significant thaw in relations between Ethiopia and Somalia, which had been strained for over a year due to Ethiopia's controversial Memorandum of Understanding with Somaliland, a breakaway region Somalia considers part of its sovereign territory. The MoU, signed in January 2024, aimed to grant Ethiopia access to the Red Sea port of Berbera in exchange for recognizing Somaliland's independence, a move Mogadishu viewed as a violation of its territorial integrity. This led Somalia to threaten the expulsion of Ethiopian peacekeepers and deepen ties with Ethiopia's regional rivals, Egypt and Eritrea. However, Turkey's mediation efforts, culminating in the Ankara Declaration of December 2024, paved the way for reconciliation. Abiy's visit to Mogadishu, reciprocating Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud's earlier trip to Addis Ababa, symbolized a commitment to mend ties. Public gestures, such as Abiy's escorted tour of Lido Beach, underscored the symbolic warming of relations. More concretely, Somalia's announcement, reported by Bloomberg, that it may grant Ethiopia access to a port on the Indian Ocean signals a pragmatic compromise. This move could satisfy Ethiopia's long-standing quest for sea access, a critical economic and strategic necessity for the landlocked nation of over 120 million people, while preserving Somalia's sovereignty by sidestepping the contentious Somaliland deal. The implications of this détente are profound. For Ethiopia, it secures a potential lifeline to global trade routes without the political baggage of recognizing Somaliland. For Somalia, it ensures Ethiopia's continued participation in the African Union's peacekeeping mission, crucial for combating al-Shabaab while reducing the risk of regional destabilization. Yet this newfound alignment has rattled the Asmara axis, which had capitalized on the Ethiopia-Somalia rift to bolster its influence in the Horn. The Asmara axis, a term often used to describe the strategic alignment between Eritrea and Egypt, has historically positioned itself as a counterweight to Ethiopia's dominance in the region. Eritrea, under President Isaias Afwerki, has long harbored grievances against Ethiopia, stemming from unresolved border disputes and ideological differences. Egypt, meanwhile, has clashed with Ethiopia over the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which Cairo fears will reduce its share of Nile waters. Both nations found common cause in supporting Somalia against Ethiopia during the Somaliland MoU crisis, with Egypt even announcing plans to deploy troops to Somalia as part of the AUSUM mission. The Ethiopia-Somalia rapprochement threatens to undermine this alignment. Somalia's pivot back toward Ethiopia, particularly its willingness to offer port access, diminishes the leverage Eritrea and Egypt had gained through Mogadishu's earlier alignment with them. The tripartite agreement signed in Asmara in October 2024 between Eritrea, Egypt and Somalia, seen as a direct response to Ethiopia's regional maneuvers, now appears at risk of unraveling. Analysts suggest that Somalia's decision to re-engage with Ethiopia reflects a pragmatic choice to prioritize regional stability and economic ties over the Asmara axis's anti-Ethiopia agenda. This unease was palpable during the Egyptian foreign minister's visit to Asmara this week. The visit, led by Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdelati, came on the heels of Abiy's Mogadishu trip and underscored Egypt and Eritrea's intent to reinforce their partnership. In a pointed statement, Egypt reiterated its opposition to any military or naval presence in the Red Sea by non-literal states, a thinly veiled jab at Ethiopia's ambitions for sea access. Cairo's rhetoric reflects not only its concerns over the GERD, but also its broader strategic interest in maintaining influence over the Red Sea, a critical maritime corridor. Eritrea, for its part, has reasons to feel particularly threatened. Asmara had positioned itself as a key ally to Somalia during its tensions with Ethiopia, hosting high-level meetings and offering diplomatic support. The Ethiopia-Somalia détente threatens to marginalize Eritrea, which relies on such alliances to counterbalance Ethiopia's regional clout. Moreover, Eritrea's own Red Sea ports, such as Assab and Massawa, could lose strategic relevance if Ethiopia secures a direct deal with Somalia for Indian Ocean access. Egypt's statement on the Red Sea highlights another dimension of this unfolding drama, the broader contest for control over one of the world's most critical maritime choke points. The Red Sea, connecting the Suez Canal to the Indian Ocean, is a linchpin of global trade and energy flows. Ethiopia's pursuit of sea access, whether through Somaliland, Somalia or elsewhere, has alarmed not only Egypt and Eritrea but also other powers with stakes in the region, including Gulf states like Saudi Arabia and the UAE. For Egypt, maintaining dominance in the Red Sea is a matter of national security and economic interest. The Suez Canal generates significant revenue, and Cairo has sought to project power in the region through military agreements and troop deployments, such as its planned contribution to AUSUM in Somalia. Eritrea, with its strategic coastline, shares similar concerns and has historically leveraged its position to gain influence with external powers. The Ethiopia-Somalia rapprochement, by potentially offering Ethiopia a less contentious path to the sea, could reduce the immediate risk of conflict over the Red Sea. However, it also shifts the balance of power in ways that unsettle the Asmara axis. If Ethiopia secures reliable port access through Somalia, it may lessen its dependence on other routes, such as through Djibouti, and reduce the strategic leverage of Eritrea and Egypt in regional negotiations. The Ethiopia-Somalia détente has broader implications for the Horn of Africa, where external actors like Turkey, the United States, and Gulf states play significant roles. Turkey's mediation through the Ankara Declaration has positioned it as a key player in the region, balancing its relations with both Ethiopia and Somalia, while countering the influence of Egypt and Eritrea. The United States, meanwhile, has reportedly exerted diplomatic pressure on Ethiopia to resolve the Somaliland crisis, wary of further instability in a region already plagued by conflict and extremism. The Gulf states, particularly the UAE and Saudi Arabia, have their own interests tied to Red Sea security and Somalia's stability. The UAE, which has close ties with Ethiopia and operates ports in the region, may view the Ethiopia-Somalia deal as a stabilizing factor. Saudi Arabia, with its focus on countering Iran's influence in the Red Sea, could also welcome reduced tensions, though it remains wary of Egypt's expanding footprint in Somalia. The growing closeness between Ethiopia and Somalia, epitomized by Abiy's Mogadishu visit and the potential Indian Ocean port deal, has undeniably unsettled the Asmara axis. Eritrea and Egypt, which had positioned themselves as Somalia's allies against Ethiopia, now face the prospect of diminished influence in Mogadishu. Egypt's visit to Asmara and its Red Sea statement reflect a scramble to reinforce their partnership and counterbalance Ethiopia's gains. Yet the situation remains fluid. The Ethiopia-Somalia agreement, while promising, hinges on implementation and could face domestic opposition in both countries. Somalia's federal structure and Somaliland's continued insistence on the MOU with Ethiopia add layers of complexity. Meanwhile, Eritrea and Egypt are unlikely to sit idly by as their regional leverage erodes, potentially escalating tensions in other arenas such as the GERD dispute or Red Sea security. In the Horn of Africa, where alliances shift as quickly as the desert sands, the Ethiopia-Somalia rapprochement is a reminder of the region's volatility and the high stakes of its geopolitical chessboard. The Asmara axis may be unsettled, but its response could yet reshape the board in unpredictable ways.